Hi everyone, it's Nicole here for Simon Says Stamp with a trio of Stitching Trees holiday cards. These are cards that give a huge impact with very minimal really kind of die cutting or stamping. So lots of repetition, which makes it easy, and then the Stitching Trees die gives you a guide and you can kind of stitch however you want. You can go as minimal or as much. Do all kinds of different stitching designs. I'm going to share with you my personal favorite, but there are lots of other ideas, and I really encourage you to check out the Simon Says Stamp gallery on the Simon Says Stamp website for additional ideas on how to use this stitching die. I have die cut some panels. I'm going to be using the stitched rectangles, like the second largest die, and I've die cut this from Fawn Noble Fur and Chili Pepper cardstocks, as well as Neenah Smooth White cardstock, just to give me a nice base. And then I die cut the Stitching Tree die from this, which is going to give you kind of the guideline of where to stitch. I'm going to start with the red panel and some white crochet thread. You could also use embroidery floss or other kinds of floss for this technique. What I'm going to do is start in one hole, go straight across, and then I'm going to go up one and back down to that first hole. Up one, back down to the hole we just came from on the other side. What this creates is kind of what I call the zigzag effect. It essentially fills in more space than if you would go straight across and just kind of do a straight up and down tree. It's a little bit less perfect, which is something I kind of like. Plus it fills in more space, as I mentioned, in between those holes, so it gives you a more full tree. I purposely went with white crochet thread here because it really stands out against the red cardstock. I think green would also be amazing here and really show up well. I'm using a white with gold filament thread on the green cardstock. That also would look great on the red. I didn't use it today, but I have a white with a silver filament, sparkly metallic filament. That would look good. There's lots of different things that would look good. I went with that red and white look. You guys probably already know this, but just looking at some of my other holiday projects, I'm a huge red and white fan. My Christmas tree is always red and white. I really just kind of love that traditional color combination, and so that's what I went with my first tree. We're simply going to continue this back and forth. Now the only tricky part is up at the very tippy top of the tree. There's really nowhere to go with that. For this, I didn't worry about it a whole lot, mostly because I'm going to cover that up anyway with a star at the top of my tree. We're going to be die cutting a star to adorn the top of our tree, so it's not really going to matter what the top looks like. This technique I'm using here, I'm actually going to use on the green cardstock panel as well. I'm not going to share that in the video just to save time. The videos do get kind of long when I'm doing multiple cards, and so I want to save you that. Now, I'm not really worrying too much on the back. I'm kind of just going, you can see under when I ran out of thread, just going under some of those stitches, weaving back and forth to secure that. Because this is a card, because it's not something that's going to get, handled and touched and pulled a lot, I didn't really worry about knotting my thread a whole lot. I'm also securing the back of this panel when we get to that, when we get to putting our whole card together, with foam adhesive, which is also going to serve as a little extra security as far as the card not falling apart. But really going back and forth underneath several of those threads should really be okay and keep those stitches in place. If you were going to do this as on another type of project, something I considered and I did not do, but I'll throw it out there in case anybody is interested. I think doing a little mini pillow out of fabric or felt. If you're going to use fabric, I would use interfacing on the back before you die cut the holes to help keep the fabric shape. But I think sewing up a little mini pillow with this tree shape would be really fun, or even maybe a little oblong kind of rectangular pillow with a trio of these trees would be super cute as well. If I was doing that, I would be a little bit more careful with the stitches simply because it's a fabric project and might get touched and moved and, you know, held a little bit more, and you don't want those stitches to come out. When I'm stitching on paper, I tend to not be quite as tidy. So when we get to the top, I did go make a stitch through the top of this one. On the other two trees, I did not even bother doing that. We're just gonna go back and forth through the back, just like I did before, and kind of secure this thread, pull it down just a little bit, and then I'm gonna share with you how I adorn the trees. They are super cute as is. But I'm a huge fan, especially for whatever reason this season, of sequins and layering my sequins and stitching them on and securing them with a seed bead in the center. So we are going to use an assortment of sequins today. In fact, I have used quite a few different ones. They are all listed and linked below. The snowflake is from a Hero Arts sequin set. This is the Snow and Berry. So on the red tree, we're going to start with a beading needle. Super important if you're going to be threading on sequins and seed beads. It has to have a teeny tiny eye. I used a big needle for the crochet thread because it's thick and it will not work very well. It won't go through a needle, even kind of a traditional needle, unless you're using a nice big one. So I used a big one for that, but this is a beading needle. We're gonna come up and make just a little hole in the back of our cardstock. This works really well here because that thread going back and forth is gonna hide that, plus our sequins will be on top. The beading needle is going to make a super teeny tiny little hole, so you don't have to worry about leaving a huge hole in your project. Another idea I'm just going to share with you here, you could use jewels and glue those in place. It's going to save you a lot of time. If you're kind of down to crunch time, you want to eliminate some of those sewing steps, sew on some sequins or gemstones or things like that. It's beautiful and it really dresses up your tree. We're going to sew on, starting from the back of our project. I'm going to create a little hole. Come up from the back, I'm using 2 strands of embroidery floss, thread on our snowflake, thread on a red sparkly sequin, a little bit smaller sparkly sequin, and then finish with a red seed bead. For my red tree, it was really important. I wanted the white snowflake to be showing in the background and then have these layered red sequins. So these red sequins are actually not from Snow and Berry. The snowflake is from Snow and Berry. The red sequins are from the Hero Arts Red Ombre Sequin Collection Pack. And then I'm finishing with a red seed bead in the center. You come up, go through as many sequins as you want, go through your seed bead, wrap that thread around your seed bead, and then go back down through the same hole in all your sequins, the hole in your cardstock, and secure it on the back, or just move on to your next one, which is what I did. Again, I did not worry about being as neat as I probably would if this was a fabric type project, simply because it's going to be hidden back behind the panel. But look how pretty these little layered sequins and seed beads look adorning the tree. With these adorning the tree, and I'm going to be doing different assortments on all 3 trees, with these adorning the tree, you don't need a whole lot else. We're going to add a die cut star to the top of the tree, and then a stamped sentiment on the front panel and a stamped sentiment on the inside of the panel that's stamped and embossed with gold. That's it. Very clean and simple, kind of more of a modern look. And it creates beautiful trees that I think anyone would like to receive. So let's finish off this panel. I also did this for the green panel. I just layered some different sequins, but it was stitched exactly the same, only using that white and gold thread, so it's a little sparklier. And then I used some gold and white sequins and gold seed beads for the green tree. I'll show you the finished card in a minute. I wanted to share a different stitching technique. This again is very back and forth. This one takes a little more time because I am changing my color of thread. I have tons of colors of this crochet thread because I really like the width of this thread. It's not super wide, but it's thicker than embroidery floss, and I use it for a lot of different stitching things. I thought it would be really fun to create a rainbow effect tree. So I'm starting at the bottom, and I've got a couple shades of purple, a light and a dark, a couple shades of blue, a light and a dark, green, yellow, orange, red, and then a darker pink. This is going to give me a rainbow effect tree. So this is even more of a modern type design than the red or green. Very much the same. It's simply it's a little bit more work just because we're changing color. So this might not be for a ton of cards, but it's really fun. Something else I did a little bit different. I am not doing a specific stitching technique. I'm just kind of going back and forth between the colors, between the holes. I'm doing about 2 up for each color, if that makes sense. So the bottom 2 holes are dark purple, the next 2 are light purple, even though I might implement some of those other holes to give the transition a better look, but I'm going back and forth with no rhyme or reason. This is to give a very full looking stitched tree so that it's really filled in with the color, because the color is the focal point on this tree. We really want to highlight that it's rainbow, and so I felt that it needed a lot more stitches to fill that space in. So I simply kind of went back and forth, weaving back and forth until I got it about as full as I wanted, and then I would snip that, switch color, and move on to the next. This is a really fun technique, and I think that it really showcases just different things you can do with the tree. If you even wanted to finish off the tree, you could stitch around it, doing a back stitch maybe up and around, so to really, finish it off. But I simply did the back and forth for my trees. We've got some red and some pink to finish off. I did speed this up, but I did want to share it so you could kind of see what I was talking about as far as not being quite as perfect with where I'm stitching on this one. And you can see a little peek of the green background panel in the upper right corner of the screen as well. And that was really, it created exactly like the red panel, so I went ahead and cut that out of the video to save time. Just different color of thread, different colors of sequins. The sky is the limit with these. You could do all kinds of different colors of trees. So we're going to finish this one off, and then we can move on to embellishing. This tree, again, a little bit different than even the previous two. I did a different sequin mix for all. For this final tree, just like I used lots of different colors of crochet thread, I'm using lots of different colors of sequins. We're going to layer red sequins, we're going to layer yellow, orangey sequins, we're going to layer green sequins, blue, aquas, blues, and purples throughout the tree, kind of following the colors of the thread. This is also that die cut star I was talking about. This is from the Simon Says Stamp large holiday shapes, which is stars and hearts. I'm using the stars. I think this is about the second smallest star in this set. Die cut from some gold glitter cardstock. I did that on all 3. It's going to tie in to our gold embossing for our sentiments. So that did stay the same on all 3 cards. And then just like I did before, we are sewing on our sequins and seed beads using a beading needle, going through our sequins, adding a seed bead. For this one, I used a shimmer, kind of a silver shimmer seed bead on each in the center. Since I'm using so many different colors of sequins, this was kind of a nice constant, and it doesn't take away from the colors of the sequins or the sequins in the background. Let's use one of our panels as a guide. So here's our green background, and we're going to pop our sentiment from the Simon Says stamp, Tiny Words Christmas stamp set. Stamp that with a clear embossing ink and then heat emboss with gold embossing powder. And I'm going to do this on all 3 panels. A very small, simple finishing touch, almost serves as the base of our tree, if you will, and that's going to be right on the white top fold card base. We're going to pop up our panel with foam adhesive squares, and we're going to use some in the center, which is just going to help secure everything really nice. Peel all these off and then pop this right into the center of our card. And that's going to give a little bit of dimension, a little bit of interest, and really keep the focal point on this awesome stitched tree. Look how pretty that looks. I just love how this turned out. Then we are going to go ahead and stamp the inside of the card with a Simon Says stamp, Christmas Wishes Greeting. This says, wishing you love and joy this holiday season. I think that's beautiful. Any of the sentiments from this stamp set would be beautiful, and a great way to finish off the card by adding something to the inside. So very clean and simple look on the front, and finish it off with a nice stamped and embossed sentiment inside. I'm going to go ahead and stamp all 3 of my card bases. We'll stamp all the other 2 card fronts with the Christmas blessings from the Tiny Words Christmas stamp set as well. I did this all, after I did one of them, I went back and did the other 2 kind of more assembly line style. You could do this for as many of these cards as you're creating. While I had the supplies out, I went ahead and just created several. That's one of my favorite things to do. And then we will pop up the remaining 2 panels, just like we did with the green one, using some foam adhesive, so they all have a little bit of dimension to them. So let's take a look then at our finished cards. I'll make sure that not speed up the video, and then we'll just take a look at all 3 cards finished. So here is a look at the green card with the gold and white. Very elegant, very traditional, so pretty. Then of course the little bit more modern with the rainbow background, rainbow sequins, but again the same sentiments on the front and inside. And then our traditional red with the snowflake layered sequins. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this trio of stitching tree cards featuring Simon Says stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says stamps and dies that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.